Hello, this is Rachel, and I wanted to talk about the Doomsday cult that I was involved in as a child and how it kind of overflows into my adulthood and where I am today, and how it makes me different from other people. So, the important reason why somebody should speak up, like myself, is because there's other people that cannot. They have reasons, and there's a lot of reasons why somebody won't speak out. So there's a lot of people that don't even know what's going on. They don't know what's happening to them. And the only time they start to piece that together is when they hear somebody else make sense of it or validate it because it's something that happened to them. There's a lot of times stuff happens to me and I think I'm the only one. But then I'll read a story or, talk to somebody and find out that I am not the only one. So it's very important for people who are willing to put themselves out there. Just go ahead and put yourself out there. Now, for other people that can't do it, it's okay. And don't put yourself out there with strangers in person or at work or with family members and friends that might come across as abusive or, you just know that they're very judgmental. Don't even worry about it. So don't worry about telling strangers at work. Don't worry about, that stuff. So if there's strangers on here looking at my video, it doesn't matter to me because they're not next to me. They're not affecting me in that way. And they're here to look for a reason. There's not like regular people on the streets or at the gas station that are going to watch my video unless there's a reason for it. So, that's enough security for me. So, the topic is being isolated from the mainstream. Now, real quick before that, so I was involved in Ramtha School of Enlightenment. Now, it's a cult, and I'm talking about like 1989 through the 90s, so the early mid-90s, and a lot of people had started doing underground bunkers. So this main thing affected my life. On top of the fact that she did testing, and even though I wasn't like always involved or whatever, it affected me and I saw it, and then I got to try to make sense of it from the perspective of a child, and did not have many coping skills. My dad did not believe in coping skills. So this group likes to isolate people from the mainstream. Now, this cult still exists, and they still teach things that want people to, or instruct people to get away from mainstream society. Now, I understand a spiritual person doesn't really want to be involved in all that. They might even be unhappy that they have a 9-to-5 job and, they, watch a lot of TV. They, are into things that the majority's into. They share the same opinions as them because they don't want to state their own opinion. There's a lot of people in mainstream society don't have any, individuality. So, a lot of spiritual people want to get away from that. I mean, part of awakening up and being spiritual is having individuality. So, what happens is, like with education, I missed education for a block of years, and they'll want a lot of children to start doing homeschooling. Yes, there is parents and people that will homeschool. Also, there's homeschool teachers who will help your child pass the test or take the test for the child to move on to the next grade level, that get paid to do that. So a lot of the time these children are not actually being homeschooled, and they're just, having somebody else pass the test for them or help them. Education could be, they want you to go from going to school to doing a survival school, going from a school to going to this Ramtha School of Enlightenment, stuff like that. So when someone's trying to isolate you from mainstream society, there's a possibility that they're going to try to change your education opportunity, so that you're, just like a lot of people are turned off by mainstream society, they can get turned off by that as well. So living arrangements. So when they're trying to isolate people from mainstream society with living arrangements, that could be you go live in a community it's like a gated community where it's only people that are like them. Living arrangements could be you spend a lot of your time at these events or in these schools or at these cults more than where you would stay at. So you're staying at these other places longer. Living arrangement could be you're living in the woods. You're not in a home. You don't have running water. Living arrangement could be you're living in the same home, kind of like a roommate renting a room. So living arrangements could be isolating you from mainstream society, where you lose your independence and your individuality as well. Like I was saying earlier, you can lose your individuality by following these teachings and these ways, just like you could lose your individuality in mainstream society. So, there has to be caution either way. So, for emotional reasons, they could want to isolate you from mainstream society. So they might have a plan to desensitize you and separate other people's emotions from yours so that your emotions are validated, but when it comes to other people, you're not really seeing them as people, so it's easy to disregard and or mistreat people because they have emotional reasons to segregate you to. Now, emotional reasons could also be they want to emotionally manipulate you or emotionally guilt trip you to stay. So these are ways that they separate you from mainstream society. Now, they might try to separate you from mainstream society by causing a sense of spiritual arrogance, is what I call it. It could be spiritual self-righteousness. Either way, you think you're better than somebody because you're aware or know things that they don't. You think you're better than somebody because you're in a special group and you're accepted. So if you're wearing sweatpants like this woman did a while ago, she tried to organize groups by sweatpants and different names. You could have spiritual arrogance to be like, hey, I came in the group at this name with these sweatpants. So I know more than you and I'm ahead of you in, the teaching. So, and it's not small because it happens. Spiritual self-righteousness, the cult leader could have a lot of that. And so when we're around certain people and we want to be like somebody, we might imitate spiritual self-righteousness, which turns people off. You end up looking like a jerk, and there's nothing spiritual about being arrogant, and there's nothing rare about being arrogant. Arrogant is not rare. Arrogant is not spiritual. How are you looking at yourself if you're arrogant? Arrogance is like the ego's friend. So we gotta be cautious. And socially, they don't want you to socialize with, other classmates, other coworkers. They might want you to stop talking to your friends, your family, socially. You might lack a lot of social skills because, they don't want you around a lot of people. They will only want you to stay around their own. So they want you to flock with birds of the same feather, except for they're telling you what feathers to wear. So anyway, socially they can segregate you. So for example, they could socially segregate you by saying, hey, you got to build these underground homes. So how are you out there learning how to get along with people? How are you out there learning how to problem solve through relationships or situations? If you're busy, running a farm because you're not allowed to go to the store and buy milk anymore, or if you're out in the woods digging underground homes and, they don't want you to be a part of the world anymore. So they might socially isolate you nowadays by not allowing you or telling you not to go on social media. They want to isolate you from normacy. Now, if there is any way to gauge normacy, which, it's just a facade anyway, and I don't even know what the heck is normal. There's so many different dang people in the world. I don't know what's normal. I just have an ideal of what might be normal, and that is easily compared to mainstream society, because that is a majority, especially in the Western world. And so for mainstream society, that could be, you're supposed to have a career, you're supposed to have children, you're supposed to own a house, you're supposed to own a car, you're supposed to watch sports, you're supposed to watch TV, you're supposed to be out partying and drinking more than being at home. So these are types of mainstream society normacies that they want to isolate us from. So another way that they could isolate somebody is they could isolate you from family and friends. So you might not be able to speak with them. You might not even be able to have a phone to have reception to speak with them. Another way that they might make your family and friends your enemies. So they go from being supportive family and friends to be frenemies or enemies. It's easy to convince somebody who's trying to learn about themselves and trying to learn about the world, especially if their world's been rocked by an awakening. It's easy to make those family and friends enemies. They might isolate you from your career and job. So they might say you can't have that job. They might say you can't have that career. They might say, hey, take advantage of your career, steal and lie, which is another way of isolating yourself at the job. They might isolate you from churches and colleges. So they might say, hey, you're not going there anymore. There's no reason for you to go there. Like with a doomsday cult, what's the reason going there if, the world's going to end anyway? So anyway, for education, I was denied education. I didn't have it. I had one of those people my dad paid off to pass a test so I could go to the next grade. Sometimes, every once in a while, she would teach me math or something. But I don't know a lot of math. Living arrangements. I was living in the woods. I was living in tiny trailers. I was in army tents. Or at this school of enlightenment. They, wanted to separate me for emotional reasons. They wanted to teach me that people's feelings and their thoughts and opinions do not matter. That in the long run, it has to do with spiritual lessons, and it doesn't have to do with the people. So there was a lot of desensitizing. they wanted to spread spiritual self-righteousness. So, even as a child, they were trying to make me feel like I was special and I knew more than other people and I was going to live through this. They separated me socially. I didn't really have friends. I didn't go to school where you learn a lot of social skills, And obviously, they separated me from normalcy. That's obvious. I didn't have a career. My job was building underground homes. And of course, I wasn't even exposed to churches at that time, and I was too young for college. But anyway, they try to isolate us from mainstream society, and there's a lot to question. And then when you realize that, there's a lot to question about yourself. Like, is some of your self-blame, some of your self-guilt, does that even have anything to do with the truth? Or is it just because of this situation and how you've had to deal with it since then? You gotta look at, are these my thoughts? Do I feel like, being desensitized is doing me any good now? Stuff like that. It gives you room to question and find out about yourself and what happened. And I just hope that for the people that can't reach out, the people that don't understand, the people that don't have, because there are people in other countries that watch these videos too. So if they don't have the vocabulary or the language to express themselves, they still have the ability to understand somebody else very well. So, it's important for anybody to get this information out there. Once we can make sense of something, then we can work through it. That's like when you have a relationship and there's a split up or a fight. If you don't understand it, it's almost impossible to get over it. You can get caught up in an obsession. So, it's just good to question yourself. Are these your thoughts? Are these your ideas even? Was this influence? Even if you weren't a child like I was. So anyway, I appreciate your time. And I hope this helps some people or educate people on the effects of being part of Ramtha's School of Enlightenment, which is under the woman J.C. Knight, Knight with a K. And I'm trying to give a background from 1989 through the early mid-90s. So anyway, thank you.